Seth, man, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great, dude. I'm excited to talk to you. This movie's a ton of fun, and your DK dude, he's a blast.
Thanks.
Of course. Listen, so you have this kind of superpower that just kind of by being happy and laughing yourself, you have an ability. You have the most contagious laugh of all time. Your laugh makes other people happy, and I love that about you, man. I think that's a cool superpower to have. You get to bring that to Donkey Kong. You get to bring that iconic laugh that you have. I would love to hear about developing that part of Donkey Kong. Was there talk about the voice, the laugh? How do you figure what is the sound of this talking monkey?
I was very clear I don't do voices, and if you want me to be in this movie, he's going to sound like me, and that's it. And that was the beginning and end of that conversation. I was like, if you want Donkey Kong to sound a lot like me, I'm your guy. But it did seem to work. I think in the film and in the game, I think all you really know about Donkey Kong is that he throws barrels and he does not like Mario very much. And I think that's honestly that's kind of what I ran with, was this idea that he hates Mario, that they are kind of have an adversarial relationship, that he's annoyed by him, that he doesn't want to be stuck with him, that he wishes he was on this adventure without him. To me, that was funny, and that was kind of the root of the character, and it was kind of born of the mythology of the games.
Oh yeah. I love how you guys kind of kept that constant throughout. And this movie is super faithful to the games, especially in its design and the appearances. And I thought that was awesome. And it's also the Super Mario Brothers movie is the first time Donkey Kong has been redesigned since Donkey Kong Country back in 1996. So I love to hear, as they redesign the character a bit. I know you just said, you're going to get me, you're going to get Seth Rogen. I don't do voice acting. But did you find yourself looking at the character, looking at the design of the character and saying, and realize, oh, wow, I'm kind of changing this up a bit. I'm meeting them somewhere. They're meeting me somewhere. What was that like?
Yeah. I think just seeing it's more like what the character does. The fact that he's a big, kind of brawny, cocky guy, that's a big part of the character, and the performance. That he's, kind of vain and always looking for adulation. All things I heavily related to, but that were a big part of the performance as well. So, yeah, I think. And I'm always telling them, honestly, the more you can show me, these rough versions of the scenes and these animatics, and the more every time, I'm definitely a performer who, the more context they have, the better they can perform, and the more I understand how I fit into the thing, the better I can do. So they were really good, actually, about showing me a bunch of stuff, and every time I went in, they would kind of show me updated things, and it did inform the performance, just seeing. Yeah, kind of the setting and seeing it's a big arena with thousands of people. That's different, and really getting to picture it. All that's really helpful to me. So they were cool with that.
Yeah, that's cool. So I know in animated films, you might not work with everybody in the cast. Sometimes you might be working with scratch audio or other actors who fill in. How many people from the Super Mario Brothers cast did you get into a booth with, if any at all?
0.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
And so were you just imagining, Chris Pratt's Mario voice and Charlie Day's Luigi and figuring it out as you went in that regard?
Yes, I think that's to me why going in with a very clear cut comedic dynamic is so helpful, especially for these things, because you can't discover it in the moment as you often can in a live action movie. Sometimes you'll show up on set with an actor and you'll be like, oh, okay, I'm the dumb guy, you're the smart guy. That's the joke. That's what'll be funny. But you can't really, you don't have that discovery with the other performers. So yeah, I kind of went in with a more what I thought was a character dynamic that would carry us through the movie, and that we didn't need to be in the same room necessarily in order for it to work. In fact, it was probably easier to not be in the same room at times, because I was really going pretty hard at Mario, and if Chris was actually there, I maybe would have held back a little bit.
You might have thrown a barrel at him. You never know. Everybody talks about Mario Kart. I personally think Diddy Kong Racing is a pretty slept on Nintendo game. I love to hear, do you have any Donkey Kong favorites in the arsenal?
To me, Donkey Kong Country, I remember when it came out, really blew it's funny looking back because it looks terrible, but for the time, the look and the speed of it, the reactivity of it, and just the overall pace of it was kind of revolutionary and really exciting. And I remember seeing Donkey Kong Country for the first time, and it really I really loved it. Yeah.
That's insane. That's like 30 years ago now.
I know.
And there's so much Nintendo lore and worlds and so much stuff touched on in this movie. Who knows where it goes in the future, but brought up Donkey Kong Country. I'm obligated to ask, are you already thinking about a Donkey Kong Country, follow up here? Is that something that'd be fun to you?
It would be fun. I honestly had a great time doing it. And I think like it's a big world, gigantic, and I think, yeah, and it seems to be a thing that people are excited to see. So,
yeah,
I'm
definitely.
Yeah, I would like
so
that.
when you get to join the Nintendo family in this way, like I know that's a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah.
I imagine you also get to see and hear about some cool stuff or maybe learn about some history here. What is nobody asking you about from your experience working on a Nintendo film that like we just don't even know to ask you about at this point?
Nothing really, honestly. I wish it makes me think I'm missing out on something. I've been offered no like secret trip into like the Nintendo home base. I wish I would. I heard they got a real Yoshi locked up in a cage somewhere.
I was going to say, I figured they had to just throw you in a warp pipe and say, "Here you go."
Yeah.
No, that's funny, man. So listen, we're good friends with Kirkman. A couple of guys here work at Comic Book are good friends with Robert Kirkman.
Oh, nice.
And speaking of animation, dude, you guys on that Invincible series is amazing. And Kirkman tells us that you guys are still working on a movie over there as well. So as a huge fan of that comic and that series, I'd love to ask you what the popularity of that animated version of Invincible has done to influence your work on the live action version, if anything at all.
It actually influenced it a lot, we in a good way, but we didn't, it was something not a lot of people in general had heard of before the animated series. And so there was sort of like a live action take, as it were, that was different from the animated take, as it were. And then the animated show came out and was very faithful to the comic and was incredibly popular, And at that point, it seemed like maybe, that was some ice. At that point, it seemed like maybe doing a live action take that was good but was very different would be weird and maybe not acknowledging the things that people liked about the animated version. And so then in our heads, the live action take seemed maybe more like it should feel like a live action adaptation of the cartoon, which is more of a direct adaptation of the comic, So, yeah, that's kind of what our thinking has done. But honestly, like we did not expect that show to be so successful and to be so popular and to really and it was a very lovely, pleasant surprise. But it did, in our heads, we were just like, yeah, maybe a few people will watch that and that exists over here and then the movie exists over here. But it became so big, we were like, oh no, they can't exist in two different realms,